This is Starting Point, a podcast that tracks Guyana's unprecedented growth from all vantage points. Join your hosts, Kiana Wilberg and Fariza Hanif, as they dive deep into the heart of topical issues.
Welcome to this week's episode of Starting Point. I am your host, Kiana Wilberg, and I'm joined by my co host, Ms. Fariza Hanif. Today, we have the distinct pleasure of engaging one of the fresh faces in the President Irfan Ali administration, Minister within the Ministry of Housing, Minister Vanessa Benn.
Good
Minister Benn,
afternoon.
welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much, Kiana and Teresa. It's a pleasure being here.
Now, for the benefit of our audience, I just want to give them a little bit of a background on who you are. And you have dedicated much of your life towards your passion, being your twin passion, being agriculture and the environment. But you're no stranger to politics. You come from a home that's steeped in politics. Your father gave Guyana its national motto. You are the youngest sister of a former Minister of Home Affairs, Minister
Yes.
Benn.
Yes, that's correct.
And also at the local government level, you're vice chair of the Plaisance Industry NDC. So quite a background there. But what I want to get from you is to open up this discussion. You've dedicated much of your life to agriculture, environment, helping Guyana in this regard. What was the turning point for you that made you say, you know what, now is the time to serve on the front lines of politics?
Thanks for the question, Kiana. I don't have any distinct time at which I can say there was this turning point. I have been working indeed a lot in the field of environment and climate change, more specifically in the more recent years, inclusive of forestry. Agriculture in my earlier, more youthful years. But indeed, yes, I've come from a family that has been, as you say, steeped in politics for quite a long time. Both my parents, my mom and my dad, have been involved in politics. My father is now deceased, but would have served at a very high level in government. As a matter of fact, at the time when Dr. Shelley Jagan was Premier of Guyana, my father was Deputy Premier. And so it comes through from that line. Always been a part of the People's Progressive Party. And my mother was the chairman of the Women's Progressive Organization, which is the women's arm of the PPP. So politics has been ingrained in all of us, in all my siblings. Not all of us have been involved in politics at that level. Perhaps more specifically with regard to my entry in 2015, I was a candidate on the list of candidates for the 2015 national, general and regional elections. So that was probably the time when perhaps I kind of came forward or was thrust forward. I did, I was a candidate as well again in 2023 on the local government elections. And it's through that process, with the success of the PP Civic in those local government elections, I became a councillor in the Industry Plaisance NDC, was elected vice chair, and I'm now the acting chairman.
So politics has really been in your blood.
Yes, yes.
So, Minister, you are minister within the Ministry of Housing. I mean, Ministry of Housing and Water. It's no longer water. Now we're getting accustomed with rolling off of the tongue with
Yes.
Ministry of Housing.
Yes.
I saw Kiana earlier had to pause at
Yeah.
housing.
I've been saying it as well.
Right.
So.
But what I really want our audience to understand is what are the responsibilities assigned to you in this ministry now that water is under the Ministry of Utilities? What are you responsible for? What is your areas of focus?
Yeah, but not me specifically. I think generally about the ministry. So the focus is on housing, driving housing development, upgrading, expanding the housing program, helping to regularize those unregulated areas, helping to advance those new areas such as the flagship Silica City project and others. So that is the general trust of the agency, of the ministry. And I believe that what I bring is that kind of environmental perspective to help to make the very strong linkage as best as I could and with the assistance of the team to the Low Carbon Development Strategy 2030. That is the intent.
So we're going to talk a little bit about Silica City later down in the conversation
Yes, okay.
and about LCDS as well. But one of the things that we have observed from many years at the Ministry of Housing are the bottlenecks there. And we see tons of people every day outside
Yeah.
of the ministry.
Yeah.
And you wonder, like, why are they there really? Is it to
Yes.
apply? What are they doing? What are they
Mhm.
seeking? What are the services they need?
Yeah.
Do you plan to put more of a structure in place
Mhm.
to ensure that the services reach the people?
Yes. Well, I would want to hope that one of the things that you notice or the things that come to mind as you speak, as you think of the Ministry of Housing is not just about the bottlenecks, but the achievements.
Correct.
Because they've had quite an impressive record in surpassing the 50,000 house lots that was, given to them for the first term of the current government. So, let's not just focus on the negatives or the challenges, but also speak of the things, which have worked well and which we will continue to work towards to achieve. Now, it's no secret that one of the challenges is the issue about the backlog and the fact that many persons have been coming to the ministry to try to address the applications for house lots for turnkey homes and so on. And there's a bit of a delay, quite a delay in some instances in getting those resolved. So one of the things that the ministry is doing is digitizing the whole system. There is an online portal which persons can submit their applications for house lots, for homes and so on. And it's to get the entire what is called a single window um, process fully operational. So there's some kinks along the chain. Whilst the ministry has worked very well with the NDMA, the National Data Management Authority, to establish this system, it also includes other agencies, all part of government, but not nested under the Ministry of Housing. So, for instance, they're the local government organs, your NDCs, your CDCs, your municipalities, and the requirement as per legislation for them to assess a building plan, where if it falls under their purview, and to ensure that they have the ability to review it, to assess it, and to make a determination whether it ought to be recommended and approved or not. There are some challenges there. And as a matter of fact, just as recently as today, this morning, Minister Kroll and I had a meeting with Minister Priya Manikchan, who is now our Minister of Local Government and Regional Development, to see how we can address that together. But we've also met with the team from the NDMA to address those things as well. And there are other agencies that are required to be part of this process, such as the Environmental Protection Agency, the Fire Department as part of the Guyana Fire Service, and so on. So, and for me, it's more than just seeing how something can work. It's how ready are we to make it user friendly, how capable we are, and our capacity, not just your human resources, but your institutional capacity to ensure that it functions and functions well.
Correct, because you still need that back end help.
Yes. So that we're coming from a position of being very paper based. And when someone submits a plan or an application, there's a big paper like that with all the drawings and so on. Now, how do you transition from this paper, document to something that is totally electronic? You just go to a computer screen and you review it, and you have the various persons who are required to review it and to make their assessment and put in their opinion on whether it should be, go on to the next stage or not. How does that function at the level of an NDC? Do they have the necessary computer facilities? Would they be required to, having been accustomed to a big paper plan, do they have the capacity to be able to review the plan on a computer screen? Do they have the necessary internet connectivity, which the agencies and the ministry have provided? Do they have the ability? And even today we were discussing, because the norm has been that you have the paper plan, and at least in my experience in the industry, Plaisance, NDC, you have this big plan that comes to you with the attendant documentation. And first it goes to the overseer. There's a review whether, the person has legal ownership and right to the land, whether there are any rates and taxes owed, that kind of thing. And then based on that, there's a stamp and a sign. For that person is required to stamp and sign physically on the document. And then it goes to the Environmental Health Department, which falls under the Ministry of Health. So the environmental health officer goes out to the site, does a site visit and so on, and based on their determination, has to stamp and sign whether it meets the prescriptions that are required by the Environmental Health Department. And then finally, when it returns from them, comes back to the NDC, it is reviewed by a committee of the council. And then based on the recommendation from the environmental health officer, once it passes the overseer, everything is, free and cleared. Ownership is determined, confirmed, rates and taxes cleared, the necessary payments made. The chairman is required to physically stamp and sign that plan again. So you're speaking of transitioning from this very paper-based process to one that is purely electronic. And one aspect we've been discussing last week and today was whether the legislation, and I know, in the establishment of the whole single window process, would have taken all these things into consideration. But just making that verification, that check back to ensure that the legislation has and there are provisions that would allow an electronic stamp.
Okay.
Every NDC, every municipality has their own stamp. So for instance, there's an industry/Pleasance NDC specific stamp for the overseer, specific stamp for the chairman, and then the environmental health officer has
It's a lot of work.
So all of that, getting all of that working. So it's good to talk about how we establish and enhance our digital infrastructure, but to ensure that all the parts along this chain are in place and the persons have the capability and capacity to make it work and for it to work efficiently. So it's a work in progress. I think we have advanced very well. We've had very good discussion with Minister Benn today, and I anticipate that very soon, based on the technical capacity of our technicians at the various ministries and at NDMA, it will fulsomely become a lot more efficient. The other aspect of it, though, is that the applicants themselves, because when you apply, one of the things you're required to do is to input an email address and to keep checking that email for an update. So sometimes it appears, because I'm new to the ministry, but it seems as if based on some of the the queries I've had, it appears as if some persons make the application and then wait, expecting to have an update, but not perhaps understanding that they can check online to get an update on the status of their application. Sometimes perhaps they get someone to assist them in that application, and so maybe they're not necessarily, have the necessary know-how. Perhaps I'm not sure to be able to check to see whether what is the status of their application,
How many people know that they can do that?
how
online?
long that is, and so on. So the other aspect of what we're doing is to ensure that we inform the public.
Correct.
That kind of PR campaign needs to be tailored to address these various things along the way.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about seeing it happen. I am crushed, every day I come in and I see so many persons waiting. But it's not only because the single window system is not fulsomely activated as yet to ensure that all the various agencies along the chain are enabled to make it work. But at the other end of the whole system is to ensure that the public as well do their part in ensuring that they can just go online. You can go on the Ministry of Housing's website. There's a portal there you can check. You don't necessarily have to travel from wherever, give up your whole morning, your whole day, sitting there waiting to check on the status of your
Just to get
application.
an update.
Yes, yes. You can call their numbers, you can call, and there are other things that we're going to put in place to make it a lot more efficient to help the public.
That's good to hear.
Thanks for that explanation there, Minister. Now, I want to take you back to an achievement you spoke about or touched on earlier, and that is surpassing the government surpassing its initial target of 50,000 house lots, reaching 53,000 in fact.
Yes.
And now you are you're part of the administration now, which has set a new target, and that
Yes.
is 40,000 homes constructed.
Yes.
I want you to talk a bit about the importance of that particular target and what it means, especially for young professionals and vulnerable families.
Yes. So, one of the things that we would have campaigned on during the run to the September 1st elections is that these were promises made. The 50,000 house lots was a promise made, and the government of the day delivered on it. And it's an achievement for which I think as Guyanese we ought to be proud. Because the provision of house lots goes beyond someone getting a house lot or getting a home. It's providing a space for persons to be able to have their families, to be safe, to be proud, and it's an accomplishment in their own personal lives. And so it shows to me the level of care that the government has for its citizens to ensure that, you're not in a space where you are required to perhaps be in an unregulated area and so on, but you have a space that, that is a healthy and safe environment. So that's the first thing. Um, the new target of 40,000 is just a build on to what was originally there. Yes, the 53,000 was achieved, and kudos to Minister Kroll and Minister Rodriguez and their team for having, such an impressive achievement. Now the 40,000 that we're working toward is one that, we are quite committed to. So first of all is to identify the areas. Our discussions today also included Mr. Muniz, who heads the Guyana Lands and Surveys Commission, to identify those areas across all regions where there's available land. To also look at the number of applications we have. And it's not just current, but the trends to see, have a sense of what would be emerging, how many more applications you tend to have within this 5-year period. To take cognizance of those persons who are still waiting, because they may not necessarily have been allocated as yet. So they would be included if they're not in that 53,000. Those that may be, over and above the 53,000 would therefore be in this 40,000 that, is our current target. And really just to ensure that, we expand and upgrade, our housing sector in our country. And for me, it's also, it's linked very strongly to the LCDS 2030, where you speak of more than just the provision of homes, but ensuring that we keep in mind that we're looking at sustainable livelihoods. We look at ensuring that the manner in which we manage our waste, the manner in which we protect our water resources, the manner in which we take care of our environment, the manner in which we look of, our cultural traditions, all these things, the aesthetics of the environment where people live. It's a wholesome kind of environment which we can be proud. We may not necessarily be in any of these areas. We may already have our homes, perhaps, but those young professionals, those single mothers, and so on, who are going to be allocated in this new thrust, the intent is to ensure that these are spaces and places and environments which, as a country, it is reflective of the vision that our government has, and it is reflective of how much effort is being made to ensure that our people are happy and safe and healthy.
Yeah.
Thanks for
So,
that answer.
Vanessa, I want to bring you back to Silica City, which
Okay.
you briefly mentioned earlier.
Yes.
And it's the brainchild of the president. He's been
Yes.
talking about this since forever. And it's also one of the landmark projects cited in LCDS 2030.
Yes.
Now, can you give us an update on where this project is? And for the benefit of our audience, can you share with us what this project signifies in leveraging Guyana's resources to ensure that we have a future-ready nation?
Yes. I've heard of Silica City so many times. Sometimes returning from the interior, you see constantly looking out through the window of the aircraft and trying to determine where this place is. So I've had the joy of visiting it last Sunday with Minister Kroll. It is indeed one of our flagship projects. One of the Ministry of Housing, one of that for the government of Guyana, but indeed one of the flagship projects for Guyana. Its intention is to have areas where, young professionals have homes. Members of the diaspora will be able to have housing that, is a kind of a more modern style of housing. It takes into consideration those same tenets of green infrastructure. So ensuring that, the manner in which we build, the manner in which we manage the runoff from the homes and so on are taken into consideration. And the kind of an environment, this general environment, it's not just homesteads, for the want of a better description, but also that you have other facilities that support and meet the needs of the community, where these persons live, and that you have spaces for children to play and that kind of stuff. So yes, it's modern. The intent is being modern. The design is very interesting. I think that students um, in the University of Guyana's Faculty of Technology should be quite enthused about it and should want to be part of it in terms of its design. I see a lot of scope for the integration of, as I was saying a few days ago, the integration of our exotic timber species and seeing how we can integrate the kind of, a lot of times the type of construction is cement and steel, but how do we still use those natural resources we have and how do we mix and match and showcase the exotic species that we have. So there's a lot of scope for us to look at modern types of infrastructure, integrate what we've been known for over the years or wooden type of architecture, and to showcase Guyana in the way how our country is transitioning and transforming into, a country that is has the fastest growing economy in the world.
Mm.
Yes.
Thanks, Minister. I want to touch briefly on another point that I heard you mention there, and that's about the construction process. And the construction process is one that many Guyanese have talked about, and the need for efficiency and quality of work. What would be your rallying call to contractors and the role that they have to play in safeguarding the government's legacy and ensuring the integrity of the initiative that the government is embarking on?
Yes. I'm really happy that you asked me that question. My message to contractors is to uphold the conditions of the contract for which they have been assigned, to which they have signed on to take pride in the work that they're doing. It is reflective, and it's speaking particularly to our Guyanese contractors, but in any case, and they're predominantly Guyanese anyhow. But to think of, the building that you're making, the home that you're making, think of it as if it's your own home. And to want to deliver a product that is of high standard, of good quality, and for which, you would be proud and not have to be concerned that it may have this kind of defect and so on. And think of it as a way that it shows the capability and capacity of Guyanese that we all, we all have the capacity to achieve, So to me, it's more than just, as I said, building a home. It's to be able to do it and do it well. And that there's so much more that needs to be done. We spoke about the 40,000 house lots that we have to do. If you do it well, there's scope for you to get more, to expand your business. As well, even you think of downstream, how many more persons you could provide employment for, and how much your own personal income and the livelihoods of so many other people can be enhanced if you do it and you do it in a proper way.
Minister, to close, I know you spoke about how the LCDS also has that link to the housing sector, and it also has the link to the beautification of Georgetown.
Yes.
And the president spoke about this in his first press conference in engaging the media, and he noted the importance of rolling out a sustainable urban development plan.
Yes.
What are your thoughts? And I also asked this from the chair of the vice chair of the NDC for Plaisance Industry. Your thoughts on the president's plan to rescue Georgetown?
I think it's badly needed. I'm excited that the president has been so forthright in putting forward his thoughts. He's put forward the thrust of our government in ensuring that we're able to, move forward in this direction. The state of Georgetown is a reflection of all of us. The fact that you have drains that are clogged, you have garbage that is all over the place, is a reflection of all of us as Guyanese, as citizens. When we go down the road and we finish eating whatever and we throw the wrapper or whatever through the window, we can't want to speak about our country with pride and not take into consideration our own actions. The president has been out there leading cleanup campaigns, and agencies, ministers, members of the discipline services, the private sector and all, everyone has been part. So many persons have been part of this campaign. But before they can get back to their offices or homes, it's almost back to square one. So I think from the get-go, I'm taking, you probably know that I'm responding to your question from a slightly different angle. I think we have fantastic leadership as in terms of the head of state, but it also speaks to our responsibility as citizens to ensure that this happens, and we can't want to, when our relatives or friends come and they speak of, oh, while is there flooding, when it rains and that kind of thing, say, oh, because the city council isn't functioning, or just casting blame. So I think together we have to, as a citizenry, improve, perhaps even take some shame in our faces, and address the manner in which we function, and ensure that there's enforcement, so that we can get our city the way it ought to be, reflective of who we say we are. We're a country that is proud. We're citizens who are proud of what we are. We were once the capital city, the garden city. And we can only get back to that point and advance along this transformative agenda if we're able, not just looking at government, not just looking at the municipality, but looking at ourselves at what we do, how we act, and how we can improve. Having said that, I am thrilled that we have such wonderful support from like the King's Foundation and other agencies that are helping us in this wholesome urban development project. There's so much historical richness of our capital city that needs to be protected, that needs to be um, archived, that needs to be showcased. That, the fact that we have the partnership of like the King's Foundation, the Qataris, and others who are helping us along this in this very important program is a step in the right direction. And under the leadership of our president, I can see that there's much that can be done to help us to do that. So there's a upgrade of the Georgetown, Starbuck Market area, Vreden Hoop, looking at the old Transport and Harbors Department, having a museum that looks at, or maritime history, having spaces that our arts and craft dealers and persons or artisans can showcase their talent and have for sale their products. There is a lot of work being done intended and being designed to ensure that all the drains are cleared, concreted, improve our drainage and irrigation systems, because we know we're below sea level. So ensure that all the sluices and cokers are functional, and that they're constantly monitored and maintained, to ensure that the manner in which visitors come and can have that kind of Georgetown capital experience, that they can walk around in safe areas where, it takes them along paths that they're places of interest, that, can help them to get a better impression of who we are as Guyanese and what we are as a country. So the urban program, the project has a lot of scope. It is one that I can see, and I encourage more private sector involvement and investment in, including the persons who are involved in the tourism and hospitality sectors of our country. There's like Minister Rodriguez was speaking of, persons coming to the country and not necessarily the kind of adventure type tourists, but want to be able to see the type of architecture that Guyana has been known for, the wooden architecture and so on. How are they able to experience that? And the other places that are kind of closer to Georgetown, let's say if the person is there for business. So much to do,
Exciting
much
times
scope
ahead.
for expansion, and I'm excited of not only what we're doing now, but what our future holds for us once we continue as a country and as a citizenry to keep committed to that and working towards. Let's put aside the fact that we've just come out of the elections campaign. That is over and done with. We all know Guyanese. As my father had said in 1958, we're one people, one nation with one destiny. Let us be committed to that.
It's a beautiful
Beautiful.
note to end on, Minister Ben. Thank you so much for sharing a little bit about your life and the task ahead for you, and also closing us off with the powerful words passed on to us by your dad. Thank you for
very
that.
much.
To our audience, thank you as well for tuning in. This has been our episode of Starting Point. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for watching Starting Point. Follow us on Spotify, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn for critical updates and exclusive content.